Yo, book nerds! I read Agnes Grey by Anne Brontë. This was my first time reading anything by Anne Brontë. I have read Wuthering Heights by Emily Brontë, but I hadn't read Anne, and I still have not read Charlotte Brontë, but this was my first attempt with Anne, and it was alright. It was okay. It wasn't bad. We'll get there. Bear with me. So, I will say that I enjoyed Anne's tone and writing style in the sense that her words were very calming and she had a beautiful way of saying things. It was also very easy to understand, so if you are someone that is new to classics, this might be a good one to start with in the sense that the language isn't super flowery. It doesn't take you on long tangents describing things. Like, it is very straightforward, so that's a plus. But what is this book about? So basically, we have Agnes, who is very sheltered. She doesn't really have friends like outside of her family. They live very isolated from like the rest of the world. And Agnes decides that she's going to be a governess and go live with another family to be the teacher for the children in that family. And Agnes is young and optimistic, but like I said, she's sheltered. So she really has no idea how the real world works. In the book, Agnes stays with two different families. The first family, oh my gosh, the children are just awful. There's this sense of boys will be boys, and the boys just are little terrors. And the girls are also terrors, but I get the sense that like in this family, the first family at least, that the boys are the gems and the girls are kind of forgotten about. So I feel like the girls, when they act out, it's because they want attention, because they just don't get any, because the boys are the stars. And even though the children are horrible, the parents just think they are just so perfect. They're such perfect little angels. They can do no wrong. And Agnes is to blame for everything. Agnes has no power to discipline and yet is expected to control these crazy children. One thing that bothered me about this book was that, so while the writing style was easy to understand and had a calming effect, it was definitely a more tell and not show kind of book. So I felt like I was being told this story and I wasn't living this story. It made it feel a little flat in some spots. It kind of felt like somebody was ranting about an experience that they had, honestly. And from what I know, I think that Anne Brontë was using some of her experience as a governess to write this. It's not autobiographical, but it is based on some of her experiences. So maybe she was kind of just ranting a little bit. I'm not sure on that, but it was definitely a vibe for at least the first half of the book anyway. This book is definitely a commentary on class, on how the upper class treats the working class, and even the lower class kind of imitate the upper class, and they just treat the working class horribly. Agnes gets treated horribly. She's expected to be this amazing, hardworking person, self-sacrificing, and invisible. Like, she is not there. Like, when other people are around, she's just expected to be quiet and not be there. She's not even acknowledged a lot of the time. There are religious themes in this book as well, and there's definitely themes about spoiled children and parents who enable them. Agnes moves on from that first family and goes to another family. The children are a little bit older, so she's expecting them to be a little better behaved, but they're still terrible. They're awful. And there's a girl named Rosalie who I just wanted to smack all the time because she is just a horrible person. So for like the first half of the book, and this is a short book, so like the first half of the book, I really was not invested in the characters. I didn't like any of them. They were terrible. And even Agnes, who is the protagonist, she is a little high and mighty, kind of morally pure in a sense. And sometimes I just wondered, like, Agnes, are you really being honest? Like, are you just so biased? Like, do you just think you're perfect and everyone else is so flawed? Like, I don't know. I don't know. I didn't hate this book, but for the first half of it, it was really a struggle. I wanted to like it. I really wanted to like the book because I have a family legend. You may have heard me say this before. I have a family legend that I am somehow related to the Brontë sisters. So I really wanted to like this book. Thankfully, the second half of the book picked up a little bit. It was like chapter 11, I think. It was the cottagers chapter. I got more invested because there's a character named Nancy who I connected with, who's having some like religious and moral struggles, and I have felt those similar struggles in my life, so I related to her, and that kind of grabbed my attention. And then after that chapter, there is a romance that kind of kicks up a little bit between Agnes and somebody else in the story. I won't say who. And it grabbed my attention and it helped keep me more invested in the characters. I did want to point out something. It was in chapter 17, the Confessions chapter. There is a section, and I'm not going to really read it, because it's kind of long, but I just wanted to point it out because Agnes is talking about how people just get away with things because of their looks. And it's basically, she is talking about pretty privilege. Like, she is. She goes on for a couple pages, but she's saying like how people want to do things for people that look nice, even if they're horrible, and it's pretty privileged. Like, it is. She's talking about it. She also goes on to like talk about how if you have that beauty, you should use it for good. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't use it for good. So yeah, I just thought that was interesting. Also in chapter 24, the Sands chapter, there are some beautiful descriptions of the sea. I love the water, so I enjoyed those descriptions. The way Agnes feels about the water, I feel about the water. It captivates me. It just has a pull that I just can't describe, and I really loved the descriptions of the sea. So I'm gonna get a little spoilery here, so here's your spoiler alert. Like I said, I'm going to come back to Rosalie because I seriously wanted to smack her so many times because she is just a little flirt and she leads people on and strings men along and gets them to fall in love with her, and then she breaks their hearts, and I just wanted to smack her so much. And she ends up getting married, and it is not a happy marriage. And all I can say is karma, because like I did kind of feel bad for her, but also I was like, oh my gosh, you kind of deserve it because you were just horrible to all these other men. So yeah, I was kind of happy that she ended up horribly. She deserved it. But we do have a happy ending for Agnes. She gets her man, and I will say that their relationship is so healthy, and it is not like the relationships depicted in Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights. So I will give Anne Brontë that plus, that her main relationship is healthy. And so I liked that. Overall, I didn't hate the book. It's definitely not a new favorite, unfortunately. I wish it was, but I do feel like I got a good peek into the working class of this age, which is nice. And I am happy that I read it, obviously. I want to read all of the Brontë works. So this definitely doesn't turn me off to reading Anne's other novels, but it was a little bit of a disappointing start, I guess. So I hope that I like her other works better. But again, I thought it was good. The second half definitely saves the book for me. So if you decide to pick it up and you're struggling through the first half, I would say keep going because it does get better. It's so short. It's hard to say, like for me personally, it's hard to DNF a book this short. So I would say push through, I guess, maybe. But I mean, if you're really not enjoying it, obviously just put it down. But I think the ending was worth pushing through the first part of it anyway. If you've read Agnes Grey, let me know what your thoughts were in the comments and we can chat. So what am I now reading? If you've been on my channel, you may know that I was kind of behind on my book reviews for like all of last year. You guys were like way behind, way behind. You can go back and look at my school videos, my grad school updates to understand why if you're not familiar with what was going on. But anyway, Agnes Grey was the last book review I still needed to upload. Now we are current again, so I can tell you what I am actually reading right now. And I am reading 1984 by George Orwell. I'm over halfway. Be watching for my review for 1984 coming soon. That is all for me this week. I hope you are all having a lovely Monday, and I will see you guys soon. Hit like and subscribe. Thanks for talking books with me.